Nick Irving didn't know exactly where he was going until the last minute. Baghdad, Jalalabad, or Ramadi. What started as a new guy haze on a C-17 quickly morphed into 120 raids in 90 days. In this video, he describes his first deployment, the strange calm of arrival, the first night raids, watching assault teams through NODs, a downed little bird, and the moment he realized war isn't like the movies. This is his story, up close and unfiltered.
It was on deployment.
Yeah.
When did you figure out where you were going for your first deployment?
Like the last month, a month prior. It's always fluctuating. 1 minute you're going to Baghdad, maybe Afghanistan, Jalalabad, or you're going to Tikrit or Mosul. It's always a toss-up. And like at the last moment is where you kind of find out within that last month or so. We found out we were going to Tikrit, Iraq, and they were saying it was a pretty hot environment at the time, which it was. And like we ended up doing that deployment, 120 missions in that 90-day deployment. We were doing 90 days at a time before we went to the 120 to keep up with Delta's rotation. But the 90-day, 120 missions was like average for...
You did 120 missions in 90 days?
Yeah, yeah.
What's going through your head when you figure out you're going to Tikrit, Iraq?
I was scared. I thought it was going to be like Saving Private Ryan, where you get off the... For me, I thought when we lower the ramp on the C-17, it's because we get picked up in our backyard. So we don't go to like an airport. It's not announced when we're leaving. It's just the C-17 lands in the back runway behind our compound. You get on and we fly to Germany. From Germany, we go to where we're going. I thought when they lower the ramp, it was going to be bullets flying. I'm going to come out charging, and that's how you enter war. But instead, it was the exact opposite. And I kind of got that picture as a new guy when I was also high on Ambien. I took the Ambien pill before I was supposed to, and I didn't know what Ambien was. I knew it was a sleeping aid, but I took it before I was supposed to. So I had to fight staying awake while on this C-17 waiting to taxi off the runway. And as I'm sitting there waiting, I started to see faces pop out of the chairs. I'm hallucinating, like I'm cracked off this Ambien, and I'm hallucinating, and I'm seeing stuff. And my team leader, Salazar, he's like, did you take your Ambien before? And I'm like, yes, I'm tripping. And he's like, dude, just wait. Finally get an opportunity to sleep. But yeah, we get off the C-17, we're running off, or I think we're gonna run off, and I don't have a mag for my gun with bullets. I'm like, where do we get bullets? Did I miss that meeting where they handed out the bullets before we go on this deployment? And I'm saying to myself, well, when we run off the C-17, I'm gonna pick up the first guy's ammo that drops, like Saving Private Ryan. But
You legitimately thought that's what
I thought that's how we come into war. And they lowered the ramp, and you see people walking around, little coffee bean shops and Burger King joints and stuff like that, and food places, and it smelled like, not bad, it smelled like, well, Iraq, but where we first landed at, it just smelled normal. I didn't smell like bombs and anything like that, burning bodies, no. It was pretty chill when we landed. Drove to our compound. It's a compound within the big compound, but it's all sectioned off with big 12-foot T-barriers and satellite communications in there, and you have to have a badge to get into this compound and stuff like that. It was pretty neat, and within the first 8 hours we were in country is when we got our first mission. And I remember going out that night, landing we were on a Black Hawk helicopter, feet hanging out off the side doors, and we land and get off, and I see them raid this home. I'm a machine gunner at the time, so I'm pulling security and just hearing the stuff going on and inside and how they got to the
What was the op?
Direct action. We were going to go kill or capture a high-value target, and they got there. The assault teams went in, did their thing, and looking at it through nods was just like, it was like watching the news almost. It didn't feel like I was really there. It was like an outer body experience, you know, of watching these guys do their thing. And I had been watching them my entire training cycle, but seeing them in combat do it, and I wasn't sure if it was a 9-banger going off or just a regular banger, or if it was gunshots going off inside this little home we were raiding. But it was cool seeing them do that, and I got a chance for the first time to see how fast they were and how good they were. But it was just surreal. Like, I didn't feel like I was really there. Like, did I really earn my spot to be here as a new guy? Or I didn't feel like I was ready yet. I didn't feel like I was ready yet. 6 months went by really fast.
Yeah.
You know? So I felt like that, but got into the groove really quick. I had a really good team leader.
Were there any engagements on that first op?
Not the first one, no. Just bangers going off that I thought were, gunshots, but it was just, I guess, a normal routine op. We didn't start getting into firefights until maybe a few ops after that. It happened pretty quick. Within the first 3 or 4 ops, 5 ops, we were getting into pretty good contact.
How long after you got into country were you on your first operation?
8 hours, yeah.
8 hours.
Yeah, 8 hours. Sometimes it's faster. We've done some where as soon as you land, you're getting geared up and you're heading out the door within a few hours. It's really quick.
Wow.
And I think the way we trade off. So there's always a battalion overseas. So for us being 3rd Ranger Battalion, we would replace the outgoing battalion, which would be first. Our first would come in to replace us. So we were replacing second. And the way we would pass off information and the packages and the intel that we've gathered, we just pick it up and continue on with the missions that they were going to be doing anyways if they would have stayed for another 3 months or so. And we build our intel and stuff like that from the homes that we raid and build more packages and stuff that way.
So if I remember correctly, on your first deployment, you did 120 operations within 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
We
were doing multiple a day sometimes too.
5 or 6. After 5 or 6 is when you started getting into full-blown engagements.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about the first operation where you and your team or team got into an engagement.
Yeah. We were in...
What was the operation?
It was regarding Zarqawi. Around that time, we weren't going after him yet. It was around that time, going after somebody else. With the group the guys that he ran with. And I remember landing on the Blackhawks. We get off and walking to the objective. We were walking down this long field through like palm groves. And we get to this compound with like scattered buildings around it. And my back is up against this brick wall, partly destroyed brick wall. My team leader is next to me, and I have, we call him Ramrod, another machine gunner next to me. I'm a machine gunner, and we're waiting for the snipers to gain position to overwatch the objective before the assault team goes in. And I started hearing, at first I thought my Peltor, my hearing protection, I thought that I forgot to change batteries and it was malfunctioning because I heard these weird clicks and snaps in my hearing protection. And all of a sudden I can feel like gravel crumbling and hitting my helmet and my back a little bit. The next thing I felt was my team leader shoving me to the ground, rams down on the ground, and I'm confused, like, what is going on? And he's like, dude, we're getting shot at, and that's what that noise was. I thought gunshots were like the movies are boom, boom, you hear that, and not that snap that goes by. That's what I was hearing, thinking that my hearing protection was like malfunctioning. So he pins me on the ground, and I started to hear the snipers engaging on the rooftop, and I'm hearing the snaps come in more and more. We pick up, change positions, set up a support by fire line. The assault team goes on the rooftop, and I think they smoked like 14 guys or 15 guys up there. Like we have a newspaper article. I have a newspaper article from that engagement. Helicopter goes down, a little bird hits a power line, It goes down, and I see that, and I never saw anything like that. It just looked like maybe he popped flares or something. I was not sure what had happened, but then I see the helicopter go down into this big, wide open field. Then we get the call over comms. Helo's down. We have to go rescue this helicopter pilot and get him out. So they're still engaged in the main objective. A small team, me, my team leader, 2 or 3 other guys, we all pick up and we run to the down helicopter, like a mile away, a little less than a mile away. We pick up, run there. It's the fastest I've ever ran a mile in full kit. We get there and you see the helicopter pilot, the Little Bird pilot, like huddled down. He had a small MP5, like the short MP5s. He had one of those, and his eyes are as big as, saucers, man. And he's scared. We set up a support by fire line overlooking him. And that's when AC-130 started kicking in and laying down people they were all coming in from that village nearby, coming to get the pilot and helicopter pieces. I don't know. And yeah, that was a pretty intense operation on that one.
Damn.
That was the first time that I was engaged and had to witness and experience that. Yeah. Everything after. I never pulled the trigger. That was the first time I would say, not out of fear, but more so out of I didn't know what I was shooting at. It was to put fire down in this general direction, and you traverse and search, if I'm correct, where you traverse and search with like a heartbeat. You're doing that with your machine gun and helping the AC-130 and all the other things we had going on, mortars and stuff. But I never saw line my laser up on someone and pull the trigger on them. That didn't happen till shortly after, and it was weirdly with an M4. I had been a Mark 48 gunner that entire time, but also drove Strikers that deployment. So I was to go to Striker driver school in Seattle, it's in Washington State. It's where, I forget the place now. It's in Washington State. If I remember, I'll bring it up. But it's where we all drive Strikers and learn how to drive Strikers. It's that 40-ton vehicle. So I was a driver, and as a driver, you keep your M4 in the cockpit with you. And I was the guy that, would pop out the hatch and use my M4 if need be. And my first real engagement where I saw a body drop was, I take that back. I'm going too far ahead. The first person I ever saw was the 50 cal guy. And that was my first experience with killing someone, but he was not shooting at us. He had a vehicle full of the IED, a V-bed. But in the back at the time, they had the, what's that chemical that you clean pools with?
Chlorine.
Chlorine, yeah. They had the back full of chlorine and explosives, like a chlorine bomb or whatever. That was their thing then. That was the first time I ever had to engage a person on the top of a Striker on the 50 cal. And when I got the call to engage this guy, I was like, why? And he's coming, V-lining straight towards us in our convoy, and he's, maneuvering to come right at us. And I wasn't understanding what was going on, never trained for that, And he's like, my PL slaps me on the helmet, and he's, shoot this mother, cussing me out. And I'm like, all right, put the sights on the hood of the car, this white car, and put the butterfly switches on it, the butterfly trigger, and skip the rounds, 9-round burst from the hood all the way into the driver's seat. And poof, he went, veered off the road. We got out, and the assaulters did, and, did their little SSE and investigated what had happened and found the explosives. And yeah, but when they opened the car, I remember him spilling out the car.
How did that feel, knowing that you had just taken another man's life for the first time?
Did not make sense to me. It didn't make sense until I got back and I went to sleep. And that's when I had my first weird dream of, I didn't feel anything. It didn't feel real because it's not what I expected. I thought it was going to be in the movies,
Big decision-making process.
Yeah. This was I'm not even being shot at. This guy's just driving at us at a high rate of speed, and I didn't train for that, you know? And yeah, it was a weird feeling. I didn't have a disconnect. I didn't feel anything. But I went to bed that night, and that's when I had the dream of that guy was the ceiling fan, and his arms were the blades, and his head was the centerpiece where the light would be. And he started spinning, and I'm strapped to my bed, and it's spinning faster and faster until his body like starts to rip apart in my room, and he just soaks my room with blood, and I'm like bathing in his blood, and his face stayed still and was just screaming, but no sound was coming out. And that's when I was like, oh, I guess, I don't know what I just felt, I woke up scared, but I guess that was the first real moment where I had a chance to say to myself, man, I killed someone, you know? But after that, it was like, not a normal thing, but it was, as a machine gunner back then, it was a lot of shooting, you know? A lot of, a lot of laying down fire during ambushes and things of that nature. So it was different, but it was not what I expected. The first time I shot someone with an M4 was, I was hanging out the hatch of the striker, and my guys were just, the assaulters were in this, it was almost like a trench warfare scenario where they had this trench thing. There were foreign fighters, and they had this trench system that the assaulters had to fight through. My vehicle blocked off the portion of the road so they couldn't skirt across. One guy did, and I remember I'm parked next to another striker, Rico 2 or whatever, and I remember him looking at this guy, and he puts his laser on the guy, and his floodlight, when his floodlight hits him, that's when you see the AK. And he's running back looking at our guys, and he's running with an AK. That guy starts shooting, my guy starts shooting at him. So I'm like, well, we got to light this guy up. And my first time doing that with an M4, I hit the safety, or not the safety, I hit the mag release on the side of my M4. Mag falls out, click, boom, one bullet comes out, hit the guy in the back, and he falls down, tumbles, and that was like the first experience I had with shooting a person and seeing the laser go on the guy and pulling a trigger and watching him collapse. But I wasn't like the sole contributor. I don't think I killed him myself. It was a joint thing where he was being shot up by...
Lots of lasers.
Yeah. It was my first experience, but with that though, you know? But I don't contribute to, no, my bullet did. It was a few lasers lighting this guy up. Yeah. And it was like that for pretty much that entire deployment. Was just a lot of direct action, but the firefights were never to where we thought that we were being overrun or gonna lose a firefight. It was pretty one-sided and was over pretty quick.
Did you guys lose anybody on that first deployment?
No, we did not. We lost somebody in a different platoon, I believe second platoon. We lost one guy during an IED blast that blew up his striker, and a nut that goes onto one of the screws in the striker blew and punctured the back of his back and went through him, and he bled out. That's the only guy we lost on that deployment that I knew.
Sounds like a very kinetic deployment.
Yeah. Most of them were, except for one, and that was working with SEAL Team 6 in Jalalabad. And that's the difference, yeah. I got my... It wasn't fun.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. So you do a 90-day deployment, about 120 raids or ops. What is it that you think... I mean, if I remember in your outline, we talk about that you know, your first... I mean, how did you gain your guys' respect? What was it about you that...
I went along with the program. I just fell in line. I got in trouble for stupid new guy drunk stuff that everybody was getting in trouble for at the time. You know, barracks fights and stuff like that. Or one time I mouthed off to a team leader because we just got back from Kentucky. We were doing some air assault stuff, like fast rope, and somewhere in Kentucky. And a team leader who was not my team leader wanted me to re-clean some 240s and Mark 48, and everybody else was going to bed, and I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna do that. And he chewed me out, and the next day when I went back to work, there was a handful of team leaders who were waiting for me and ready to take care of things the way they take care of things in battalion behind the back of the shed. So it got rectified quick. Fall in line quick, yeah.
So let's wrap up your first deployment. You come home. I mean, what very kinetic deployment. Sounds like a lot of killing.
Yeah.
How are you processing this at home?
I really wasn't, man. I just I felt like Robin amongst a bunch of Batmen. You know, I was just Robin. I was just a sidekick, it felt like. So I didn't really, nothing really processed, I think. It happened relatively quick and I got wasted, you know, to be honest with you. Like, that was the first thing we did when we got back, was just drink and drank and drank and drank for like 2 days of binge drinking. And as soon as you're done that, you're back into training. Like, there was no time to, we had 2 weeks, 13 days. We're allotted 2 weeks per year, 1 month per year. So 2 weeks before deployment, 2 weeks after, you're allotted for that. So yeah, I went home to Maryland, stayed with my friend, did some cool stuff, I guess, got drunk and just hung out with friends. I didn't really think about too much of anything. Like, I didn't have bad dreams or anything like that. It just felt weird. I felt different as, I tell you what, I felt that I was never gonna get picked on again. Like, my senior 11th grade and 12th grade I wasn't allowed to, my last year in high school, I was not allowed to get suspended anymore for fighting. I had used up all my fight days, if you want to call it that, before expulsion, and I would have to come back and repeat and just go to a different school. Like, I was bullied a little bit, I guess you could say, because I didn't fit with the crowd of guys who just lived a different lifestyle. You know, I couldn't afford to, my parents would not let me be that guy. So not being able to fall into like the guys with the streets or whatever, you would get picked on. But so I had to fight a lot, you know, and after that deployment coming back, I knew I was never going to get picked on ever again, because it was, yeah, I felt like that, and I've killed people, you know, and it was not a big thing to me. Like, I didn't cry about it. It wasn't like the movies or anything. It just was what it was. So I carried that back. And I still to this day carry it I don't ever want to kill anyone again, but because I think it does take a piece of your soul every time you do it. I don't know, my opinion. But if I had to, of course I would. I would, yeah.
At what point did your wife come into the picture?
2006. Oh, so during that deployment, during like the later portion, I'm on MySpace. I had snuck out to go to the MWR. So that was the only place where MySpace was allowed. We were not allowed to have it on our compound or anything like that. I go across the street to an MWR that the legs use, the regular Army guys, and I go in there and I hop on MySpace, and this girl, Jessica, she messages me, and her picture didn't pop up at first. And she just says, hey, we went to school, elementary school together, just wanted to reconnect or see how you were doing. And I thought it was a different Jessica that I did not like. So I clicked X and I was like, there's nothing there. But it ate me up for the rest of that day, and because I wanted to see if it was the right Jessica. I go back the next day and her page loads up, and it's the girl that I went to school with in elementary school. In the first grade, the girl I used to pick on and threw a frog on and a spider on and stuff like that, and dated elementary school style. Same girl, but just looked way hotter. And I looked at my friend who was next to me. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna marry this chick. And he laughed, he chuckled about it, printed out her picture, messaged her, got her phone number, came back, and I called her from a sat phone. And we talked. She knew I was in Iraq, but she didn't know what I was doing. She knew I was in the Army and I was overseas in Iraq. Like, it's all I was allowed to say at the time or whatever. And I met her after that deployment. I got a flight to Maryland and I got a flight to San Antonio. And I went to go see her and stayed with her as a friend for a few days. I couldn't afford a hotel. I had spent all my money on some rims, 20-inch rims. and I got ripped off. They charged me like 10 grand for something that didn't even fit on my car. So it was a bad story. But spent all my money on that and plane tickets. So when I went to go see her, I was broke, but I was broke balling. I made it, it was a good time. And yeah, she liked me, but I guess not the way I wanted her to like me. She wanted to be friends, but I'm the type of guy who's that's not gonna happen. And she was just getting out of a relationship. So, and he was still trying to talk to her. And my way of telling her I'm the right guy was, I will beat your guy's ass. And yeah, I just did worked my magic, no voodoo. And we ended up dating in 2007, got married in 2007, November, after my second deployment in Ranger School. Yeah, our third deployment, got married. So second or third deployment, Ranger School, and then my second deployment, got married.
Okay, so you came.
Close to, yeah.
So is that I know that's to Afghanistan.
Back to Afghanistan, yeah.
This is 33 kills in 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about this deployment.
Rough, man. That deployment was at the height of, I guess who was the president? It was Obama at the time. And he had that big influx of sending the big the wave of troops coming into Afghanistan. It was the largest influx since the invasion of the war, something like that, in 2009. And we were mainly working in Helmand and Marja. Marja was like the wild, wild west, and they hadn't cleared it out yet since early on in the war. Yeah, a few guys here and there, but it wasn't like, it was at the time Taliban safe haven. So I didn't know it at the time, but when
what year is this? Do you remember?
2009.
Okay.
What month? It was, let's see, Cop died in July, so March, April, May timeframe is when we got there. And yeah, April or May timeframe. We get there, and first few hours we're out in country, and I'm coming with the mindset of like, Afghanistan is lame, dude. There's not much going on unless you're, in one of those very few hot spots up in the mountains somewhere, the outpost or whatever. And I wasn't expecting too much, so I told my wife the same. I'm like, after my last deployment to Afghanistan, like, there's nothing that's gonna happen. And it was the exact opposite, dude. It was the omen of me being on my last deployment. And normally guys on their last deployment don't make it back or they get hurt. They get
You
shot
knew
at.
this was going to be your last deployment.
I knew on my contract.
Okay.
Depending on how it went, determined if I was going to sign up again or re-enlist to do another, 2, 3, 4 years or whatever. But we get there, and shortly, like a few hours in country, we go to Marja, and that's the Taliban safe haven. And I remember landing the Chinooks outside the city of Marja or town of Marja, whatever, the outskirts of it. And as we landed there, I just started seeing tracers go up in the air. I'm like, that's pretty neat or weird. I didn't think too much of it. And it was their early warning system. So as we literally, when we step foot in the city and start walking through the homes and little huts or whatnot, we get ambushed. Our first mission out, and I remember, the first mission is where we didn't get ambushed. I killed 3 guys in a tree line. They were countering to cut off our avenue to our extraction area, and I plucked 3 guys, me and my spotter. They had AKs and RPKs or PKM machine guns, and was trying to set up an ambush point. And that was my first kill as a sniper. And
How did that feel for you? What was the distance?
300 yards. Like
300 yards.
Yeah, 300 yards, a little over 300. But I remember being on top of the rooftop, and the sun is coming up, so I can see now. Normally, like 98% of our missions are at night. This is the first time I remember seeing like Afghanistan or overseas in the daylight like that. And I see these figures in the tree line moving and bobbing up and down, and I'm like, that doesn't seem right. So I look through my scope, and that's where I see they're carrying the weapons, and one guy's setting up here, one guy's trying to set up and take his little friend further down in the tree line. So I'm looking at him, and I'm like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. We're not being shot at, but they have weapons. I called it up to our ground force commander, and he's like, anybody with weapons that is deemed as a threat, engage. And I remember looking at my spotter, I'm like, dude, we're gonna smoke these dudes, man, before they, start shooting at us. Took the shot. My first shot missed, but I remember the recoil and the smell of when you first fire that round and you've got a clean weapon, it's oiled up, and you get that gas blowback. I was shooting an SR-25 and shot the first guy. First shot missed, hit him the second time, went down to the second guy. My spotter picked up the third guy. And I remember with his 300 Win Mag, and it felt good, but it also didn't feel like it was real. My first time shooting a 3-dimensional moving human target, I was not expecting, I don't know, just felt weird normally with the machine gun, it's more bullets. So with the AR or M4, it's way more, but just putting one round and watching the body go down was it was weird. It was weird. But it felt good to know that I was like doing my job of, hey, I don't ever like to say I did something I saved the team or prevented something. No, it was just right place, right time. And it felt good to facilitate the extraction for the guys and taking these guys out. That was first day in Afghanistan, got those kills, and we were going out every day thereafter. The next day we went to Marja, and that's where I get into the story. We're walking in we step foot in the perimeter city of Marja, and we get ambushed. And I remember this tracer, to me, it looked like a lightsaber. It was long and a glowing like lightsaber, and it went past my head, and it felt like slow motion. Like, what the heck was that? I knew what it was, but it took a minute. I got down, and that's when we start getting ambushed from the rooftop. Forget how many guys were on the rooftop. I'll pick it up in a minute. But I was at the back of the formation, and me and my spotter, or sniper, Pemberton, I pick him up. I'm the sniper team lead, so I say, let's go to the middle of this formation, provide precision fire, so at least our guys can get out of this kill zone and make their way down to the objective. So I get in the middle of the formation, me and Pemberton. There's an M203 gunner next to me, and I remember telling him, hey, shoot some 203 on the backside of the house that these guys were on in case they try to flee out the back, and we went to cut that avenue off. So he launched off a 203, and I remember I didn't have my ear pro in, and that, boom, the crack of that 203 going off was like, wow, woke me up a little bit.
For those in the audience that don't know what a 203 is, that is a grenade launcher.
Yeah, mounted on the bottom of his M4, and yeah, he shoots off 2 rounds of that. It thuds in the back. Me and him set up. I go prone, put my bipods down. He's kind of behind me, and he's using his floodlight infrared flood laser to illuminate the guys on the rooftop. And I could see like their heads pop up, and just the whites of their eyes would glow when it bounces off their eyes or whatnot. And I lined up, and I tell him, hey, we're gonna, pick these guys off. I'm gonna start on that side. That's how we would work, is I'd, work on the outside, work our way in. And we go for the countdown. I shoot, and I hear a click on his end. And I'm like, what the heck was that? And he chambers around, he goes click, click again. No nothing, no fire. And I think when it ended up happening, not too sure, but I think sand got in his bolt action and prevented the hammer from fully striking the primer. I'm not sure, but it never happened again. That's like the only time I've ever chewed someone out and, was pissed. But I guess the good side, I got a chance to kill all the guys myself. But as they were popping up, I just said, hey, keep your flood laser on them and walk with me, meaning I'm going to engage one guy and go to the next guy and illuminate his head. So they were popping up and they're shooting at us, and I would just line up the scope and pull the trigger. First shot, I remember, hit the lip of the top of the roof where they were peeking over, and it struck low. Not sure if the distance was off or the angle I was shooting at, I don't know, or jitters, who knows what. I was rarely a first shot impact guy, mainly because of the range. You don't have time to... I was doing everything mil-dot formula. So if I know, like, I always used, if I have your body from top of the head to groin, I knew the constant for that was, 40 times 25.4. And I think that's like 1,016, if I'm not mistaken. That would be my constant. And I would just quickly divide the mil dots into that 1016. But I would just make it a whole number, my constant, to 1,000 to get me within close range. So let's say if I measure you from top of the head to the groin, 2 mil dots, I know that's 500 meters, 2 into 1,000. So yeah, I would play it, I guess, by ear like that. The distance was off. I'm not saying that they were 500 meters away. They were relatively close, like within 150 meters away. Shot the guy, cleaned up my second shot, shot him in his head. And I remember his head busting, and it sounded like a gallon of milk, spoiled milk, being poured over the edge of the rooftop.
How close were you?
It was within 150 yards.
You could hear that?
I could hear the chunks, or I could hear splashing.
Shit.
I could hear splashing. My distance, dude, honestly, could be off. It was no more than 150. Nighttime, I don't know. It was within no more than 150. It could have been less than that, less than 100, less than. I don't know. I don't know if I'm not going to say I heard it. I could have been making that up in my brain from what I saw, but I don't know. I don't know. I think the body.
Descriptive.
Yeah. Like even the first guy that I remember a sniper shooting overseas, my brain registered sack of potatoes. And that's what I saw. I thought someone dumped over a sack of potatoes off of a ledge, and that's what my mind made up, I don't know, the mind.
It happens all the time. I'm not saying it didn't happen.
No, dude, no. No, there was also no sack of potatoes, obviously. But no, I know that. I don't know if it's the way my brain makes sense of things or whatnot. I'm not sure. But to me, it was like a jug of milk being poured off the side of the ledge. That's what my brain told myself. Whether or not the sound was audible or not.
Did he fall over?
No, it was like his head was lumped over
the ledge.
No, he was not off the ledge, but hanging off the ledge, like from this portion up. So his body was on the roof, and he was halfway spilled over. The second guy, I shot his head, he disappeared. And at this time, we have ISR above, and they're describing what's going on the rooftop. And I thought it was a dog, the third guy, but he was crawling on his hands and knees. So I just saw the long portion of his back or his spine, and I thought it was a dog. So I shot, and he went down. I didn't find out it was a guy until we went onto the rooftop, and I saw the dead bodies there. My guys after that, they pushed on to the objective. We got ambushed thereafter. I think we got ambushed like 8 times that night. Before we got to the objective. It was an 8-hour running ambush, but that was the normal for Marja. That was normal. One of my good friends, Paul Martinez, was a sniper, came in after I did, but he was on that deployment with me. He was in charge of all the interpreters, or not the interpreters, the ANA, the Afghan Army guys. And I was always around him, and he got a chance to see me do a lot of cool stuff, and that's what made him want to be a sniper. But it was, in his book, he describes it way better than I ever could, of the amount of rolling ambushes. Every few 100 meters or so, we're getting ambushed before we even got to the objective. And then by the time we got to the objective, the sun is coming up, so now we have to run out to the pickup location, the extraction. That was like routine for that deployment. That mission, I remember, so I killed those guys on the rooftop, and then I may be tying these two missions together, but if I'm not mistaken, after that is where I called in the AC-130 to drop 105s on a handful of dudes, like a handful of guys, and help blow these guys up. But I also might be tying these missions together too. I mean, it was like that. But in my mind, I think that was at the tail end of that mission is dropping the 105 howitzer rounds. I'll look at the date on the award and I'll send you a copy I may be mixing two missions together, but in my mind, that's how it feels. It was all one. And dropped those guys. And I think that was the first time where I got a chance to feel like a sniper, where you're using air assets, precision rifle. And prior to that, I was shooting guys in the tree line. We were being ambushed again. And an assault team went up to this tree line. And I'll never forget looking through the scope. They had to walk across this field. Me and my spotter, sniper, were tucked in another wood line. And there's a couple 100 meters or so to the next tree line. Some guys had squirted off the objective and had hunkered down and was setting up an ambush point in the wood line. ISR fed us that information, and the assault team started to press them. And they have a dog with them. The dog's barking. He's honing in on something in the wood line. And I see these like flashes. I'm like, oh shit, those are eyeballs, blinking in the tree line. I don't have a clear shot. Nothing's really happening. And then you just see sparks erupt from the tree line, and Long goes down, Keith goes down. Our dog starts running weird, shooting through the tree line and making a circle. I'm like, what is going on? I start shooting. Then I see Long, one of the team leaders, and he's picking up Keith, and we hear man down, he's shot in the head and all this stuff, right? And shit. I'm like, what the fuck? Or what, excuse me. And I start shooting guys in a tree line, but I can't really see where the bodies are. I could see flashes of light. I know I hit one guy. After that, my spotter, he's calling guys out. I don't know what happened if I'm hitting anybody after that. I'm laying down more so like suppressive fire as they're dragging their guys back. The dog is just running weird. He finally comes back to his dog handler. He gets picked up. The dog is shot. He took around in his side. Keith took around through his night vision, and Long took around through his helmet. We called up a Carl Gustav. He puts, I think it was flechette rounds, into the tree line.
A what round?
Flechette.
I've never even heard of that.
It's like it's the big ordnance, but when it explodes, it sends out like shrapnel, like razor
fragmentation?
blades. Yeah, something like that. I was not a Gustav guy, but I'm pretty sure it was called flechette rounds. And it would shoot out these like shrapnel into the tree line. And he shot that. It didn't really do much or anything that we could see. I think it hit low. And that's when we called in the AC-130. At first, the rounds were hitting they were to the right and behind the guys, off quite a distance. So I call up and I'm like, hey, I say, left 75 plus 50. Or I'm giving calls like that to bracket the rounds. Once I saw the rounds hitting where the ambush was coming from, where I knew the guys were at, in this sector of the tree line, fire for effect, and they just started raining danger close, like 105s down. Then I remember closing the distance after the rounds were expended, walking across the field, and smoke is rising up. It looks like something out of a movie. And I'll never forget this guy. I think he was in shock or something, but he's walking. I don't know where he came from, but he's walking through this smoke. And I had changed mags by this point. And I lined up with him, and he turns to go do his thing. I don't know if he was out of it or what, but he's about to shoot, I perceive, or what. I don't know what he was going to do, but he was just dazed. And he's got his AK with the wrapped up tape around it. And he turns, and I remember plucking him, but it felt like my gun didn't go off or nothing ejected. And I thought I had like a squib round. I fired, an assault team lights this guy up. So I'm stuck looking at, empty out, or take my mag out, looking at what's going on, trying to figure out if I have a squib or whatever. My gun's jacked up. I had no idea that I was shooting subsonic. I had pulled the wrong mag, so I shot subsonic at him. And with the subsonic, you have to rechamber around each time, and it's not enough blowback to chamber the next round. I had no idea I was doing that. Finally figured it out, changed out my mag, and we carried on from that mission. But I remember going into the tree line, seeing body parts. And the first thing I came across was a hand, and it looked like, here again, my mind does a weird trick where I say Mickey Mouse glove. Like the swollen Mickey Mouse hand glove, it looked like that. Then I saw the arm, legs, like butt cheek, I think. Heads popped off and weird stuff like that. So we were told by our commander, we have to figure out how many guys for our AAR or after action report and call it up how many EKIA. So we're putting the bodies together, essentially, to see how many bodies there were. And it got called off pretty quick after, guys are gagging. And it's like, dude.
You guys were picking up limbs?
Yeah.
And piecing bodies together?
Yeah.
For an after actions report?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. To see how many guys that we killed. And we called it off early on. Like after 2 or 3 bodies, the ground force commander looks at me, says, Sierra, my call sign. Hey, how many guys were in here? I'm like, 5. I know for a fact 5, so we left it at 5. I'm pretty sure it was.
Is that like standard SOP? Have you done that before?
Yeah. I mean, not to that degree. We've done missions where.
Like, what's wrong with
BDAs,
just an estimation? Like, I don't know, five bodies.
I don't know. We've done BDAs, battle damage assessments, where, you have a big Hellfire missile or something would be. We had one in Iraq. Hellfire missile gets called in on a Hilux vehicle, blows up. We drive out to do a battle damage assessment and examine the bodies, take pictures, and see how many guys that we, took out. But that was, not routine, but it happened often.
Damn.
If we weren't cutting off fingers, but that was not my job. I've seen the assault guys do it. But, taking teeth. We had a suicide bomber working with the FBI, and suicide bomber blows himself up in the back of a pickup truck as we're approaching him. I remember seeing one of the assault team leaders. I didn't like him, so I'm just going to call him M. He lifts up, he flies back through the air, and like something out of a movie, we get hit with the blast, and luckily none of us got injured or hurt, but I remember hearing his body parts falling, and his head was sitting in the back of on the ground near the back of the truck, and the FBI guy put it up there, and we pulled some teeth using our Gerber knife and stuff like that. It was routine for us to do that, like cutting off our fingers and, taking it to a compound that was not ours. I'm by one of those agency, places. And that was my first experience in Marja. And it was like that every mission in Marja, all the way until we were about to do our final mission, our push in Marja before the Marines came through, that invasion. And our mission was to have 2 platoons. One was going to be on the east, one was going to be on the west. We were going to close in and kill everybody outside at night deemed a threat. And luckily that got called off, because I was sure we were going to have casualties. Luckily it got called off, and we ended up doing a mission out in Kandahar. And we got hit by the Afghan police out there, and that was a hell of a ride. But Marja was like that. And some days I would kill 1 guy, some days I'd kill 5, 6 guys, But Marja was all like that. I didn't find out until I got home. I was watching the news, in my apartment with my wife, and I saw the Marines were going into Marja, and that's when it all made sense of like what we were doing there, of like, oh, you know, we were supposed to. Our whole job was to kill as many fighters, enemy fighters, as we possibly could in Marja before the Marines got there, and we killed that deployment like over 1,000 guys total.
You guys killed over 1,000 enemy combatants?
Yes. Oh yeah. My wife was there during the ceremony when they announced it. We got our awards. I got 2 awards from that deployment. One was a Valorous. The one where I dropped the bombs was the Valorous Award. Then I have some joint commendation medals from that deployment, but we smoked a lot of people on that deployment. A lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
1,000?
Not all bullets, though. It was a lot of bombs being dropped. And like, we were killing people every night, though. Every night. The ground guys, we were killing, like, the entire platoon, you could get, 9, 15, 20 guys in a night. And that was a good night. A good night. But most of it was a lot of 500-pound bombs, a lot of ordnance, a lot of 105s and 30 mics, and yeah, a lot of that.
Let's go back to that first mission.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like 2 Rangers were killed that night.
Oh, no. Cool story. Keith, when he got shot through his nods, the bullet did not penetrate all the way through and deflected, so he ended up not getting hit. That's the second Ranger I knew who got shot in the head. The other guy who got shot in his nods, he was climbing up on a rooftop on a ladder, a sniper. He got shot through his nods, but I think the bullet went into his brain. It didn't kill him. He fell off the ladder, and I remember him chunking a grenade up there to kill the guy that shot him in the head. And he killed that guy. And Keith is the other guy that I knew who got shot through his nods, and the bullet didn't kill him. But when we got back, I remember Keith from when he first came in. I'm like, dude, what did that look like? He's like, bro, I thought it was a beach ball coming at me. I'm like, you could see the bullet? Did you see trace? As a sniper, I'm like, when you're sniping, you can see the trace of the bullet. I wanted to know if he could see the back end of the trace, and he didn't know what I was talking about. But he said he thought it was a beach ball. Someone threw a beach ball at him, and it got big, and he was knocked down after that. Long got shot in his helmet, and he was fine, too. The dog survived. We had to carry him out. And I remember the ambush and walking through the water, this ravine, and the dog handler, we patched him up, and he's carrying his dog, Chico, on his shoulder, and us getting ambushed. And that was the closest one where I shot someone, 20 feet away. It was an older gentleman who was, I guess he felt that Allah or whoever was on his side, and he wanted to just run through us for whatever reason. And we got the call to drop him. He didn't want to stop. We gave him commands. I remember shouting at him in Pashto and putting my red laser on him and circling his chest with it, putting around at his feet, putting around next to him, and he is just focused on coming at us. And I was like, damn, he was wearing all white, never forget it. And I looked through my scope, and I put the scope on, it looked like a button on his shirt or a pattern. And I pulled the trigger, and it was just all white. I didn't see body parts or anything. It was just an all white, what he was wearing, the garment. And shot, and I looked, and then he was down. I was like, wow, I never shot someone that close before with a 308, you know. That was weird, and took the dog out, got ambushed the entire way out, and got picked up, and did it again the next day. Yeah. Of course, minus a dog and Keith and Long, yeah. They got back in the fight pretty quick, though.
Wow.
Yeah. I got pictures from that one I'll have to send you. Or I'm sure they get posted up, yeah.
We'll put them up.
Yeah.
We'll put them over while we're speaking here,
Yeah.
what we're speaking about. But, you know, what was your, as a sniper, and you guys are getting after it every night. We just mentioned 1,000 plus killed.
Mm-hmm.
In what, 4 months?
4 months, yeah. But it's a combination of like different platoons. Our platoon we had the lucky spot of going to Marja, but we were right next door to, I want to say 2nd platoon or 3rd platoon. So us combined, 50, 60 guys, yeah, killed about 1,000.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That is a lot of work.
Yeah.
What is a sniper that's getting that much action? What do you prefer to carry?
Oh, semi-automatic sniper rifle. I wanted to take the bolt action, but it didn't carry enough rounds and it wasn't fast enough to like traverse targets. My spotter, he carried a 300 Win Mag, and I saw that not the struggle that he had, it was just slower. But when he hit someone, it was definite, you know? Yeah, it was, I would pick a SR-25 any day of the week. Before that, I had the Mark 13, the 5.56, was it a Mark 13? My nomenclature's off, but it was a 5.56 DDM rifle.
Yeah, was that the Mark 11?
Mark 11, one of those, yeah. So I've always been like a semi-automatic guy, not as accurate, past. I was gonna be cocky and say like 800 meters, bro, but in all actuality, semi-automatic, I think I'm really good up to 700. Bolt action, past that to, if it's a 308, like I could pull off 1,000 yards with it, but not first shot, maybe not second shot. It would take a minute maybe. And that's just because, the like density altitude, I knew played a lot with the ballistics and how far I could reach out accurately. Or before I hit transonic, or the bullet started to tumble at a certain distance and it just wasn't as accurate as it would be. Let's say if I'm shooting a target at 600, 700, but reaching out to 1,000, 300 Win Mag, bolt action is what I would go to. And the luckiest I've ever been was at 1,000 yards, a little under 1,000 yards with the SR-25. And that was my longest, furthest shot. And I think a lot of it had to do with luck. And I didn't, like I said, not first round impact. I remember when the guy looked at the splash on the ground, and when he looked up, the second round was already in flight. And I remember when it hit him, and Martinez, he looked over at me and he's like, dude, badass. And I just looked at him and was like, holy shit. I didn't want anybody to know that, dude, I didn't think I could hit this guy that far away. But they were shooting at us as we were extracting. We were getting ambushed from the side. There was this big wall, and we had Kiowa or Cobra helicopters flying in. And I remember hearing like grass being like mowed or something like that, like a lawnmower going off. And that was the machine gun from the helicopter shooting over us into a courtyard that was ambushing us, trying to shoot through the wall. And we're leaning up against this wall and had no idea. Well, we had an idea. I just didn't make sense of it, that we were getting ambushed from that side and they were trying to shoot through the wall to shoot us. And then we were getting ambushed across this, like a dam almost, like a small dam or ravine, concrete ravine, and up on this hill, being ambushed from machine gun fire. And the first group of guys at that distance, I missed. He had fled behind a house, or the backside of his, wherever he was shooting from, a house, hut, whatever you want to call it. Then the second group of guys is where I redeemed myself and was like, no, I'm gonna get this sucker. I had made a bad judgment call in distance. I was way off, like 2 mils low, and I was half a mil to the left of him. And off on distance, so I compensated for the second group of guys I was going after. First shot missed, I was still low, but I was within enough of where I could make a second shot correction. Just copied and pasted the splash of, splashes here, let's say half mil low, and just pulled it up and held a little bit right, quarter mil right, to compensate for whatever wind that was out there that day. And the second round, I'm pretty sure hit him square in his chest, just based on the way that he fell, like in his own footprint, the way he fell. But that's my cleanest shot. And working with the Marines and saving, I hate using that word, man. I didn't save anybody. I just shot a guy that had an RPG. He popped around a corner, and I was overwatching this Marine. I was attached with them on this 5D operation with recce guys, and like the third or fourth day, every morning they would get ambushed by the surrounding town. They had overtaken this school. Me and the Marine Scout snipers, we stalked out, broke into some abandoned home, cleared it, set up a sniper position, waited all night, and waited for the ambush to come. Ambush didn't come. I don't know if they knew we were out there. I'm not sure. I don't think they knew. But for some odd reason, they did not engage that day. The Marines decided they were going to, they called it movement to contact, I believe, where they just got in their vehicles and went out to the city and waited to get shot at or get engaged. And I remember that being weird. I had never done anything like that. I'm overwatching them and I see the Humvees come out and I can see the Marines in it. And no shit, there's a guy. Well, they started getting shot at and I couldn't tell where it was coming from or couldn't pinpoint it. We had some mortars land beside, or not beside, it was pretty far off, but mortars landing near our position. And you could hear snaps of bullets. And the Marine convoy, as it was rolling through, this guy popped out with the RPG and he lined up, pointed it at the Humvee, the lead Humvee, and it was a snapshot. Like I had been out there all night, so I had pretty good distance of where different buildings were and, landmarks that we had determined. And I shot that guy, and that was
Nick came home after that tour a different man. No movie-style epiphany, just a suitcase of memories, and the knowledge that some chapters never fully close. He kept training, kept living, but he carries what he saw. If you want more raw, uncut combat stories like this, subscribe and stay tuned. These are the voices people rarely hear.